feeling rude, I'm feeling hot, I want to run. The feeling exciting, so darling, let's do something. I wanna rub my body on your body. Body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. Rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body. Rub my body on your body. I just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hug up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my ways. So come on now, babes. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Let me rub my body on your body. I wanna rub my body on your body. Well, you know, I'm feeling, 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 I'm feeling.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street, in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins Firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins Firm.
All right, hey, guess what? Don't panic. My name is Mark Benschop. We are on. We are live. In fact, it's just 5 minutes after 9 o'clock where I am. I don't know what the time is where you are, but I know in beautiful Georgetown, Guyana, it is 5 minutes after 9. in beautiful Linden and other parts of Region 10, it's 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. In Berbice, it is 4 minutes after 9 because, let me not tease the Berbicians, man. Good evening to all of you. We are going to rock and roll for about an hour. Yep, 1 hour. If anything happens and we go a little over 1 hour, must know that it is because the subject matters are basically interesting. Before we get into our guest this evening, Nigel Linden, Apostle Nigel Linden, no stranger to a lot of you. No stranger to a lot of you. Some of you love him, and some of you want to not to love him, but it's okay. He is here this evening. I want to find out a little bit of this guy. I want you to hear about him as well and some of the issues that he stands up for. Also with us, no stranger to you guys, right here on Benschop Radio 107.1 FM, is Member of Parliament Jermaine Figueira, the Honorable Member of Parliament Jermaine Figueira. He is on with us this evening, and we will definitely get to the bottom of things. I know. Let me warn you guys ahead of time that Linden and as much as other parts of Guyana, they're experiencing some serious internet problems. Serious internet problems. We have already lost Jermaine Figueira for a couple of minutes. I have noticed we have lost also just a minute ago Nigel Linden. Let us hope our technical guy will be able to stitch him back in with us. But good evening to all, every single one of you who are listening. And those of you who care to share the live, thank you all so much. Lemon and the whole crew out in Brooklyn, Staten Island, everyone, good evening to all of you. And now, as you all know, it's not necessarily a greetings program, right? But several things happening. Several things happening in Guyana. Let's get to this one first. Look at them. Lowenfield, Mingo, and Myers. The commission, the chairman of the elections commission, who appears to be working alongside the PPP, and this is my opinion, mind you, seems to be working alongside the PPP, have decided without any justification, none whatsoever, to fire these three persons, these three professionals, Lowenfield, Mingo, and Myers. They have been fired not because they have done anything wrong, but because they are not doing the biddings of the PPP regime. So they get them out of the way. And look at the puppets they're going to try to install there. Look at the puppets. Keep an eye on those puppets. But I don't know. If I were part of the opposition, or if I was sitting next to the opposition leader, I was going to urge him to call an immediate press conference to address this particular situation. But I know there are lots of situations they should be covering, but we are getting some press releases from them, mind you. We appreciate the press releases, though, right? Better than nothing. So these three persons have joined the other thousands of persons who are without a job as of the 18th of this month, without a job. I don't know where this is heading, but sorry about that. Like I said, a little bit of distraction here because of the internet problems our guests are having out there in Linden. Lots of things we're going to talk about this evening. Let me not waste much time. I don't want to waste much time. Let me bring the first gentleman on whilst we wait for Mr. Figueira to connect back with us. For the first time on Straight Up, for the first time on 107.1 FM, and this is the first time that I'm getting a face-to-face conversation with a man that is popular, Nigel Linden, Apostle Nigel Linden. One of the things Nigel said to me when we spoke earlier, and I invited him to be my guest tonight on Straight Up, he said, "Mark, my name is Nigel. Good evening to you, Nigel, and welcome to Straight Up.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here. Good evening to all the viewers and those listeners. I'm certainly appreciative of your invitation, and I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity to share in person my convictions and everything as you may require me to share. And I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. To begin with, people want to know. I know a lot of folks do know you. Some like you, and some just don't like you. That's the nature of life. But let us
Indeed.
get into this guy, this person, this Nigel London. Who exactly is Nigel London, and how would you describe yourself?
First of all, I describe myself the way, and this will be the only time I may be inclined to be considered religious. I describe myself as a saint of Yahweh, and I am an apostle of the Lord Yeshua. That's the ultimate that I attempt for people to know me as. But in the apart from that, I'm the son of Errol London and Minute London, the grandson of Walter London, and I describe myself to be additionally the son not of slaves but of kings and rulers.
The son of kings and rulers. In fact, that's a good description. And you're originally a true bred born Lindener.
Linden, actually, I lived in Wismar, Maxwell Alley, and so I may have gotten a taste of what is familiar to many people as the courage and the strength, the boldness, the fortitude from where I first knew myself as an individual, which is in Wismar, Maxwell Alley to be exact. Then I went to transition to Mackenzie, lived in Fraser's. Then thereafter, my father, because he worked in the bauxite industry, I moved to the Beast and came back to Linden. So there's quite a bit of movement in my life. But I am originally, I say to people, born and bred a Lindener.
Born and bred Lindener. If you're now joining us, we have Apostle London. Nigel London is with us this evening. The man that started, that we are aware of, that started this protest out in Linden, and it spread in other parts of the country to stand up against what is considered a dictatorial policy to have persons to be vaccinated. And now we're going to get into that, but I've noticed that we
Sure.
got back the Honorable Member of Parliament, Jermaine Figueira, who has been kind enough to be on this show here. In fact, he should have been interviewing him on his show, but I kind of like say, hey, let me have the apostle on. And one of the things the Honorable MP said to me, Mark, you took this one from me, man. You took it from me. I actually did. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
Thank
Good
you.
How are
night.
you doing this evening, sir? Mr.
Excellent.
Figueira?
Good night to you and your viewers. Good night, Nigel.
Good evening.
Happy to be here on the Mark Benschop show. Straight up.
We're glad to have you here as always, Nigel. But and Mr. Figueroa. Let us begin now with let's get back to Nigel London, Apostle Nigel London. How would you describe yourself? And I'm asking you this question before we get into some hotter subjects. How would you
Sure.
describe yourself as a little boy growing up? Mischievous, like I was?
I've been labeled that by my father, but I describe myself as being adventurous and prepared to stand, even as a boy, for certain strong convictions, since my grandfather, Walter London, my paternal grandfather, would have taught me as a boy that I should always stand even to the point of death for what I believe in. And I should never allow people to bull rush me or bully me, harass me into submission. I grew up with much courage. I was never trained to be a wimp or afraid of anybody. And that's who I was. But my father, on the other hand, enabled me as being mischievous at times, but still courageous. I could live with that.
Mischievous. I guess, Jermaine, you can identify with us that mischievous part as well.
Most definitely. I guess it's a Linden thing.
I just realized that there are three Linden men actually
Yes.
on the
Well,
show.
wow. Interesting.
Not to make our audience feel a bit jealous, but all three of us are Lindeners. I was born at the Mackenzie Hospital many years ago. many years
Wow.
ago. And I ran around in Third Alley, Second Alley, Christianburg, all over. I
Ah,
ran around.
great.
So I'm familiar with that sort of mischievousness also in Linden. Um, so we're just getting to know Apostle Nigel London a little bit from a personal standpoint. So you have children and everything, right? Let us hear a little bit about your family.
Yes, I do. I'm married. I have children, both biological and by I have many. I'm a father of four, but a father to many. And I am certainly grateful that I've been entrusted to raise. And please excuse the tone of my voice. I've been disallowed from using a simple 10-inch speaker to speak to people, and hence my vocal cords are in trouble. But I try my best to be heard since this is very critical. Yes, I'm a father of four children, but to many, I am a father. I am indeed someone who's passionate about my family, about the well being of my family, which is what, as we'll speak to later, give great cause to my being a public advocate in many instances, because I believe that the well being of my children would have much to do with what I do as a father, even in society.
Well said. I recall many years ago, there's a church somewhere out on Burnham Drive, opposite, I think, between Dutchy Boat Landing and Adams Boat Landing. I can be wrong. I recall going up there, and it's a Pentecostal, and we used to clap and sing, Father Abraham had
And
many
many,
sons. That was the tune out in Linden those days,
right,
man.
right, right, right.
So you said that you're a father of many, and I recall that Father
Yes.
Abraham had many sons. Mr. Figueroa, before we get back to Mr. Nigel London, give us a rundown. Give us anything that is happening apart from this, the protest for the mandatory vaccination. Before we get to that, what are some of the other happenings in Region 10, sir?
Well, this is primarily the um position right now. This is the talk around the town. Linden would have stood up for a position that they would have believed in, and this is I was on the road today actually, and everywhere you go, people are happy that Lindeners would have stood up. I mean, we would have gotten text calls from overseas as well, because a lot of persons were of the view that like Linden was somewhat dormant and became somewhat docile, but they understood that Linden has always been a revolutionary community, a resolute community, and a community that will continue to stand up and rise up against anyone who try to um, trample upon our rights. So all over the community, they are encouraged. They're more motivated than ever. I mean, this is what the people of the community has been asking for, and by extension, Guyana. They want to see Guyanese rise up against this installed regime who has been trampling on the rights of every citizen of this country. And it probably took this type of action by the community for the consciousness to be awakened by all and sundry, and to for them to regain the courage that is required to stand up against injustice. So I figure um, this will send a resounding message to the PPP that what they're doing, they really need to do some introspection, because the people of Linden, if it's nowhere else in Guyana, will stand up and rise up to the occasion when when it is necessary. So this is what is the immediate focus for the community, Mark. We have a lot of other issues, but right now this is the one that embodies all. The dismissal of workers, the closing of the nursing school, all of these are suppressed emotion that were exploded upon and released by the residents who participated in the protest action. So this definitely is the first step in the continued struggle that has to be unfolded, the civil disobedience, I must say. So we are going to remain resolute, but as the conversation go, there's some expressed views that has to be articulated, because in protests sometimes um, the intent and the purpose is somewhat could be straight away, and we really need to take this opportunity, to take this platform to speak to those who are in Linden of any action going forward, how it has to be, because we don't want the whole intent of the action to be taken away by some unscrupulous characters who might be a part of the action, a part of the struggle. So I trust that this conversation will bear some root in us, giving some clarity with respect to how do we move forward as a collective, as a community, as a people with a united thought pattern of the actions that has to be unfolded and taken as a collective.
All right, well said, Jermaine Figueroa, the APNU AFC parliamentarian for that region. They have two actually, but we do see a lot of Mr. Figueroa. Well said. You did say in terms of congratulating those who came out. Many of us would say, and I turn my attention now to Mr. Nigel London. And why do I turn my attention to him? Because practically all of Guyana, those who watched, practically the world saw one man who made that bold step first, who went out there, who stood by the car park, I believe somewhere over in Mackenzie, correct
Yes,
me, Nigel, and said to
that's
the
correct.
people that nothing is wrong with taking the vaccine. Nothing is wrong. If people want to take the vaccine, take that vaccine. It is okay. And if people do not want to take that vaccine, it is also okay. And no one should be able to, no government should force anyone to take that vaccine. Nigel, Apostle, can you
Yes.
describe that moment when you stood there and you were urging people not to take or to be forced into taking a vaccine? That morning when you got up, what led you to do that, sir?
I'm so grateful that you sought to, or you initially clarified my position, which is a necessary caveat. For some odd reason, persons believe, and it's beginning to appear as if it is the elements of uh, or bent on disrupting or distracting people from what I'm actually about. I've never once said in over 1 year that I'm against vaccination, even in this case, because I'm not against vaccination. I'm never, not even against these vaccines as they present themselves in the context of persons being permitted to choose whether they want them. My position remains the same, that I will always be against forcing an individual to be vaccinated. And this is what led me out to the market square, as you said, because Mr. Figueira is here representing APNEA. See, I'm here in an apolitical position. I want that to be clear as well. I don't have any side, and Mr. Figueira knows uh, that I have had many occasions and still do to be have an issue with what he represents. But that doesn't make him my enemy, and even that we speak to. But I have had on that day, I awoke with when I discovered or realized that there were actually people in Guyana after 47 years of my living on earth who believed that they could tell me as a man that I have to be vaccinated. And I don't mind how they try to twist it. That's what they actually said in essence. Or else. And Mark, I have a serious problem with or else when it comes to being an adult. You don't speak to me that man. I don't care who you are. If it comes to anything that I have to take into my body, then no human being gives me a consequence should I refuse to do so. And when I went to the market or decided to go to the market was because I also recognized that the military, the people who are most critical to defending Guyana's sovereignty, I have never heard the PNC, APNU AFC, the PUP defend Guyana's sovereignty because they cannot do so. But when I heard that our soldiers were being also mandated to take the vaccine, or they have to be removed from educational programs, some of them were being told they have to pay to be tested, or they would not be made to return to work. That is when I said that I'm not going to take this. Because if you're going to be doing this to our military officers who have stood throughout the pandemic, as well as the Guyana Police Force, These are people who are labeled as frontline workers. And then we got to the nurses and the doctors who never had a vaccine for more than a year, just about, and they continue to serve. I recall when the PPP Civic were critical of Valda Lawrence, saying she was mishandling the way COVID-19 was being dealt with in Guyana. And I told Frank Anthony, not in person, but through social media, that I will hold him accountable. If you can criticize Valda Lawrence, you should be better than Valda Lawrence. And I was horrified to awake to see that somebody in this country or a group of people had the courage to tell my brothers and sisters in Guyana that they have to be vaccinated or their jobs are threatened, their freedom to move is threatened, their freedom to earn a living is threatened. And on that day, I said that, in essence, I am tired of the silence of leaders. It appears as if persons have cause to be cautious in defending the human rights of us in man. I decided as an individual that I will go to the market square and I shall stand as a man, not asking people to join me. I simply designed a banner, a placard that says, I, not we, I, as an individual, stand for everyone who, because of many years of oppression, cannot stand for themselves. In the military, I know they cannot do certain things. I know the police cannot do certain things. And I said that I'm prepared to stand for every human being in my country who cannot stand for themselves because they're downtrodden, they're afraid of victimization or whatever else it is. I took that step as well because my children are involved. I heard that it was said that after the adults are dealt with or while they're being dealt with, it is expected that our children would be next in line. To further compound the cause, the president of this country, that's who he is, whether I like it or not, that's his called, took the courage on that Sunday evening to say that everyone who is unvaccinated, I'm not vaccinated, so he spoke to me, is more dangerous than a virus. Now, I have been a science educator. I've worked in many departments of science. I served at the Ministry of Education in a supervisory level. I have taken great offense because I've never heard that the person who carries the virus is more dangerous than a virus. That is dehumanizing and disrespectful. And being the person that I am, I chose to individually and independently stand to inform the community that there's an individual among you. If you want to be quiet, fine. But there's an individual in Linden who refuses to be silent, in Guyana at large, who refuses to be bullied by any human being. Kill me before you do it to me, because I'm not going to have it.
And that's exactly what you demonstrated for the world to see. You stood there at the market square and you said to those policemen and maybe women who were there to warn you, to stop
Yes.
you from talking. You decided
Yes.
to exercise your constitutional rights. You were brave enough. And again, I salute you for that. You were telling them
Thank
that
you.
you were basically exercising your constitutional rights. But
Yes.
one of the things that I saw, and I'm like, this is going to get a bit heated here now. When they invited you to the police station, you voluntarily went with them.
Yes.
Trust me, Apostle London, they would have had to drag me to the station. But why did you volunteer to go when you knew that they were violating your rights? And when you went to the station, after you left, you did say that they discussed certain things with you, but you're not going to reveal that. What exactly
Yes.
transpired at the station?
Sure. Well, the reason why I went, or I decided, I told them I would go to the station was because initially I asked that the officer or the assistant superintendent who was speaking to me, I said it's easy for you to come because I refuse to relay this message to my people that I cannot stand on one side of the street and shout to someone across the other side without being deemed to have disrupted the peace. I refuse to be used at any point to utter or echo anything that does not lend itself to being rational or sensible. I therefore requested of that officer that he can come himself and tell the people who are here that a taxi driver, for example, cannot stand on one side of the street and speak to another person or didn't have disrupted the peace. Now, when he said he wouldn't do it, I said, okay, fine. I heard that persons are becoming aggrieved and agitated. As someone who was seeking, I'm seeking to not have this country descend into anything that would cause harm to people who are already grieving and suffering. I made a decision that if you are willing, then I will come and speak to you face to face so that you can tell me what you were telling me here before. I therefore walked to the station, went to Assistant Superintendent DeHart, I think his name is, and sat with him. I promised that I would speak to him as a man of the record, for him to hear that as a person, how I feel about what was being done. But I will divulge, as I promised, that in that conversation, I made it clear that no one in this country shall refuse me the right to speak, to propagate my belief, my thoughts, and my feelings publicly. It would not happen. And we understood each other at that forum. I never meant to disrupt the peace in any way. I simply meant to speak to people.
Fair enough, and we all saw that. But do you know that they, and I'm sure you do, Apostle, I'm sure you know that they violated your rights
I
because there
do
was
know
no
that.
legal justification to remove you, voluntarily or not, from that position. You were well aware of that.
I was aware of it, but I was also aware that there was much at stake, which would have been the persons that have reacted. And I never intend for the police officer to be seen as an enemy in this situation because I don't defend my enemies. And if I said that I stand for them, I understand that they were sent, those who came to me, to say what they had to say to me. And I wasn't intended for them at that forum to be seen or made the focus of what should not be. Although my rights are violated, I understand that in many others you deal with persons violate my rights. And one of them was to go to the individual who I felt, whether he was the initiator of it or whatever it is, I felt it was better to go to him and have him present to me any justifiable cause to do what was done. And it could not be done, which is why I returned to my position of right.
And and so you did indeed, and a lot of people actually um, commended you for that, and I commend you for that as well because you stood your ground. At that
Thank you.
point in time, before we get back to Member of Parliament Figueira, you weren't afraid to be locked up for what is right. You weren't afraid to go to
No,
jail for what is right. Let's hear from you.
no, I'm not afraid to do any of those things because, as far as I'm concerned, if anyone is going to arrest me, put me in jail, whatever else it is, there'll be a record to show that you're doing this not because I was wrong, but because whoever is doing it is afraid to be as right as I am. And for as long as an individual is afraid to do what I'm doing because they want to lose their job, they want to lose, go in somebody's black book or blue book, whatever book we have in this country, I have no issue with being arrested because at the end of the day, there may be another individual or maybe a child who at some point will grow up to say, I have read about a man, I've heard about a man, because technology would go nowhere, who once stood for what he believed in and he was treated unjustly. And that may trigger in that individual a cause to stand as well. And probably they'll multiply as has happened in this situation. So I don't have an issue with persons trying to arrest me. It's the right to arrest me. It is my right to have you tell me why you're arresting me and present me before a court for whoever it is on the bench to tell me what I did wrong.
All right, well said. You're now joining us, Apostle Nigel London, out there from Linden. And we have also Member of Parliament Jermaine Figueira. Mr. Figueira, we are hearing reports that even the police, all police officers, men and women, have to show their vaccination cards. They have to be vaccinated. This forced vaccination, how much does that have? How much? How much does that have this sort of negative impact in your mind as a member of parliament, as a lawmaker? Forced vaccination.
Well, irrespective of the men in uniform being bullied, I would want to term it to take the vaccine. I look beyond the uniform, but I look at the situation as a Guyanese, irrespective of the title or the uniform you wear. I hold the view that you should be the person who has that inalienable right to choose what is it that you want to put into your body. This is your temple. No one should determine what goes into your temple, especially especially a vaccine that is still experimental. Now, the science has, in some regard, shown that the vaccine has some form of efficacy, and it has, by reports that I would have read, it would have saved a number of persons' lives. And then there's also the flip side where it is alleged that persons would have died from the vaccine as well. So I'm saying there's so much unanswered questions out there, and this is what is causing the hesitancy. I am not against vaccination. I have taken many vaccines. So that in itself says to you and the listening audience that I'm not against it. What I'm against is the force and the approach that this administration has taken to say to the citizenry of this country what they should and should not do with their own temple, their own bodies. I'm in opposition to that. If I am comfortable when I would have done my independent research, because the information is out there, and yes, they have anti-vaxxers who also put out information, but let that be on me as an individual. Given all of the information that is in the public's domain, be it from the World Health Organization, be it from the CDC, wherever, but when it comes to the choice of vaccination, it should be me, the individual, who makes that choice because I have to live with the consequences of the decision I make with respect to this body. And that is the position I hold. So I don't believe forced vaccination should be on anybody. Let that choice be on the citizenry.
As a lawmaker, have you taken the vaccine?
Um, that this too is also an issue, your question, because there's a client doctor confidentiality clause.
There is. I disagree with you. Full
But
stop on that.
you
You
can
are a
disagree.
lawmaker. You are
You can,
urging people. You're saying you have no problem with the vaccine,
Mhm,
to take it or not to take it. As
mhm.
a lawmaker, you cannot shield behind confidentiality, sir. I
No, no, no,
disagree
no,
with
no.
you. Have you taken the vaccine or not?
I don't have to answer that question. I'm saying to you,
So the
just
fact
like,
that you have not answered a question, I believe you have answered the question. Look, I have taken the vaccine. I have nothing wrong with.
and
I
that
see
is your
nothing
right.
wrong with people who don't want to take the vaccine.
But
But I
Mark,
took
that
the
is,
vaccine. I
but
took
Mark,
both
that is
shots of
your
the
right.
Moderna. There's nothing
Mark,
confidential about that. But
you,
continue, sir, before we get
Mark,
back to Apostle London.
Mark, that is your right to say to the public if you choose to. What is the status of your health condition with respect to if you
No, we're
choose to
not
take the
talking about my
vaccine or
health
not?
condition. We're talking about a vaccine.
Man, listen. Okay, I have not taken a vaccine as yet because
I think we suspected that.
a number of questions still lingering. But it's not to say that I am not when in later down in the future if I am comfortable with the information out there. But right now I am not. And as a result of such, if I am given that right as a lawmaker, as you want to put it, to
You
determine
are a
if I should
lawmaker.
or should not take it,
Mhm.
then the average citizen who are not lawmakers should also be given that same right to decide if they should or should not take the vaccine.
So, what if you turn up, before we head back to Apostle London, what if you turn up the next sitting in Parliament and they say parliamentarians have to show their vaccination cards before they enter the chambers? What exactly would you do? What would be your reaction?
Well, there is a statute that says that parliamentarians cannot be prohibited from attending parliament to execute their functions. The speaker attempted to um, put that position on parliamentarians, and he was reminded by the clerk of the National Assembly that that cannot be done. And more so, Mark, we have in Parliament on a virtual platform as well. We have in a physical and virtual platform where MPs are allowed to attend Parliament in the virtual realm as well. But this is
Okay.
not about attending Parliament. This is about the rights of individuals to determine what goes into their bodies or not. This is a topic of contention right now,
Fair enough.
and
And at this
this
point
is
in
where
time,
we are.
you have decided that you don't want to be vaccinated until you get further information. Is that correct?
I am continuing to do my research, and every single day
Okay.
you're seeing the science, the outcome of the various vaccines that are out there. You're seeing so much additional information. And I have friends, I have family who would have taken the vaccine, Mark. And some of the new revelation on the various vaccines that they would have taken, they have legitimate concerns. And I'm saying the citizenry also has legitimate concerns that the government, that the lawmakers should take into consideration. And I don't believe mandatory vaccination is the way to go.
Fair enough. And I respect that. Fair enough. Apostle Nigel London indicated earlier that he has not taken the vaccine.
No,
Any particular reason, Apostle?
sure. And I was asked this by many news agencies. Of course, NCN was not one of them, and others, but that's fine. And again, I'm making certain things known here, so the persons can know my position. I've never denied anyone an interview. Whoever came, I spoke with them. And certain entities not choose to speak to me. But my reason was made clear. I refuse to be told by a minister of health or government, I should say, that I should be vaccinated lest I lose certain rights of mine. And then I asked a simple question of Frank Anthony, the president of Guyana, Barajagi, any one of them. Just tell me simply, according to what the World Health Organization has issued in reference to mandatory vaccination, they have caveats or warnings or considerations you must make. Don't just push things on people. They said if ever you're going to consider going down the path, which is the last stage you should ever take, to determine that individuals should be vaccinated mandatorily, first of all, you must convince your population that there's a high mortality or morbidity rate associated with the disease. So your life is at stake here, or the public health well-being of a nation is at stake. We do not have that occurring according to statistics. We have a 94% for the past few weeks recovery rate. Recovery doesn't mean that you don't feel sick. It means you've fully gotten over the effects and the any danger associated with COVID-19. So we cannot have a 94% recovery rate. We had it without the vaccine. And someone says you have to take it. That's one. Secondly, though, and most importantly, I've said that the World Health Organization has also indicated that if you're going to mandate the use of any vaccine that is for emergency use authorization, then you must establish among the citizens that they cannot sue the manufacturers. But the government is prepared to have some assurance and some compensation that can be there to give confidence to the population that should something happen to you, we are going to be available to be held accountable or to provide the necessary assistance should you suffer an adverse effect. To this day, the Ministry of Health, the Minister of Health, the President has not uttered one word to me as a Guyanese that they are prepared to function under the edict of the World Health Organization, a guideline that is fair enough, because they said, and I can quote for you, it would be unfair. This is what they're saying. It is unfair to require people who experience vaccine-related harm to seek remedy resulting from mandatory vaccination. They're saying it's important to note that it would be unfair of a government to say you cannot sue a company, but we cannot take care of you either. And on this forum, I hope that someone of them can see Mr. Benschop and answer that question for me. My hesitation lies in the inability of this government to give me confidence that they care for me enough should something happen to me as a father of children. I refuse to take a risk so that you can have numbers to submit to any entity who said you should have it. And I'm speaking to the government here.
Fair enough. Well said, Apostle Nigel London there dishing it out to you guys, and we can't disagree with that because the government or the installed regime, whatever you want to describe them as, right, have not done sufficient work in convincing the citizenry about this, the efficacy of the vaccines. In fact, people have
That's
issues
correct.
with one particular brand of vaccine, that is the Sputnik V. And people have that right. And let's get back to the honorable member of parliament. And I don't really mean to put the honorable member of parliament on the spot. I understand confidentiality and so forth, but this is 2021. Yes or no? But I respect the fact that the member of parliament has explained why he hasn't taken the vaccine. Were you in the US right now, MP, would you have taken Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson and Johnson?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, the information concerning Pfizer has been changing with the passage of time, and likewise the other vaccines. Like I said, Mark, I have reservations because of so much information that is out there that you're reading. And I agree with the World Health Organization recently saying that they have to have a world strategy on how to educate the masses on these various vaccines
And,
because
and,
it
and
is.
and indeed, educating the masses, I agree with both you gentlemen. But the World
Yes.
Health Organization also today at a forum, a press conference, they said that they urge citizens, whether in the US or outside of the US, persons to be vaccinated. The
Yeah, but
same
let me
World
make
Health
this point
Organization
though. Let me
said.
make this point though, Mark. Listen.
Sure, go ahead.
Now, one, it is proven that the vaccines do not prevent you from getting COVID. What they're saying is that it helps boost your immune system. That if you get it, then you will stay alive. Now, I have friends, I have family members who would have contracted COVID. They weren't vaccinated and they survived within a week using herbal remedies, using the World Health Organization recommended supplements and vitamins that should be used. Now, Israel recently, one of the most vaccinated countries in the world. I read an article this week, rather, stating that it is the most vaccinated country in the world, and they have the most hospitalized vaccinated persons. So all of these revelations, Mark, it is putting a lot of hesitancy on persons taking the vaccine, and I think this is why there have to be a national education program where the messaging is one that is going to eliminate a lot of the question marks that people may have and make them comfortable with respect to either taking the vaccine or not. But when you come with this bullish attitude, you will always get resistance because big people, little children don't like you to bully them, so much less adults. So I am saying the government's approach is not the best approach. I think there needs to be a strategy in an education campaign rollout to answer the questions that many citizens may have. And I think once that is done, the people will be in a better position to take the vaccine. Additionally, Mark, you are trying to impose mandatory vaccinations on the populace, and you're not in possession of the total amount of vaccines that are required. Now, take for example, we would have just seen last month and this month thousands of the vaccine, the Sputnik vaccine, expire. Now, the government went out and purchased vaccines in bulk numbers, knowing the data that how much persons are being vaccinated on a daily basis. It was below 6,000 nationally, and you went and you purchased such a large quantity of vaccines close to the expiration date, knowing that the data that should have guided your spending of taxpayers' money, you should have known that you are unable to vaccinate so much persons within that time frame, given the national data on how persons are vaccinated on a daily basis. But you went ahead, spent out taxpayers' money. A lot of it went to waste because thousands of those vaccines spoiled. So you question, what is the motive of the government? Is it to make money or is it to save lives with this vaccine?
And that's a good point to make. We'll stick a pin at that, and we'll head back over to Apostle Nigel London. That protest
Sure.
yesterday, the shutting down of the bridge, the mood of the people out there in Linden, it was spreading like wildfire. Can you
It
describe
was.
those long hours you guys spent out there and shutting down of the bridge? What were some of the chantings of the people out there, the ordinary folks who were prepared to stand up for their rights?
Well, again, that is something that has to be made clear that I was at the Mackenzie Hospital because I spent part of the night there. I returned the morning because I saw person. There were many nurses out. Uh, on one occasion, it was only one nurse who was taking care of an entire ward. That was the previous night, from the morning until the night. And she was pleading with people to please come to give her relief, but the guards were saying you cannot because of the policy or the order. I also saw a 2 or 3 day old baby being carried in with an emergency situation, and the mother could hardly walk, and the individual had to do it for her, carry the child for her. And there was no one in the accident emergency department to take care of that child. The nurses were outside. The nurses were pleading to get a chance to go into aid, and they were denied. Persons stood there and saw that the night before, and I kept saying that this can escalate. There was nothing in me that says any bridge should be blocked. Uh, there should be any assembly to do anything because my position remained that I be peaceful. And it is critical to note here that I've said that the reason why I've labeled my placard I stand is for Ghana to have a situation now where we can have critical, independent thinkers. Because I don't want to be a part of any group that says, let's do something, we all want to do it. Everyone must have an individual conviction that this is what I want to have happen. And if you do not agree with that, then you do not do it. My position was that I was going to stand to see what is happening with the nurses, with the healthcare workers, and with the patients. I returned the morning. There was a large number of nurses and healthcare workers present. They were locked out still. Another emergency situation arose. Persons were able to see yet again that nurses and doctors who work in the ER were not allowed to enter, while a young man was heading into the facility unconscious. His mother was told she cannot go to see her son when nobody was there. He couldn't talk, he's unconscious. I said, this is going to spiral out of control. I kept warning because I didn't want it to get to the bridge situation. I said, this should not happen. All it requires is for someone to make a sensible and rational decision. That if nurses would have worked for more than 1 year without a vaccine, and Linden down actually in terms of numbers here, or numbers in region 10 altogether, declined significantly. We are at 0 and 1 person being infected for past few weeks. I said there's no cause for there to be alarm. Remove this situation because persons will lose their cool and they'll react. It was not done, obviously. Persons began to head to the bridge. I kept saying this is not what we want to have happen because there'll be many other inconveniences that will be suffered. And most importantly, I must make this point that I know that the persons who would like to grab the opportunity to say that they're blocking the bridge, they're hooligans, they don't want nurses to get to work. And it was done by Big Smith News. Persons who are preventing nurses from getting to work, which is an absolute misrepresentation of the truth. Nurses were standing there and the people were saying, let the nurse go in and we remove the blockade of the bridge. When I heard that, I said, this makes sense then. I sought to have Commander Winter and also just make a few calls. Call who you can so that I can tell them what the people are asking for because the people are speaking to me. They say they trust my presence and they will listen to what I have to say. So I was trying to get to Frank Anthony, to get to, first of all, the CEO of the hospital, Rudolph, or I don't know his last name, James, I think it is, to simply listen to what the people are saying. We have a problem where the bridge is blocked. The people are saying if you open the gate to let the patients and the nurses in, we would remove the blockage from the bridge. He said he couldn't speak to me. I must talk to somebody in Georgetown. or Dr. Harris, I took it on myself to go down to Mackenzie to find this doctor, the regional officer, health officer, to say, we have a crisis on our hand. The people have blocked the bridge and they're making a demand. If you open the gate for the nurses and health workers to go in, we should remove the blockage from the bridge. This is simple. That still was not being respected or accepted. It lasted for quite a while. Up for 13 plus hours, I was out there because I was not, and I would like the public hearing me and listening to know this and viewing. Persons began to rehearse about what happened in 2012. And persons were saying we're in the same position. We are seeing officers before us. We also heard, which proved to be true, that they bust loads of people headed to Linden. So they intend to come and kill us again. Persons who are obviously saying other things that they overheard conversations or exchanges between officers saying they come to make Linden people target practice and stuff like that. I still continue to appeal to those who were in Georgetown to let the Minister of Health know that we have a situation which, Mark, stemmed from a problem that the minister claims he was unaware of, which was that in Linden, the nurses and healthcare workers were locked out, but Georgetown, New Amsterdam, Port Morant, West Demerara, they were allowed to enter. Now that is blatant discrimination. And please forgive my passion. I don't speak up, I speak with passion. So I'm not mad. I'm just speaking passionately.
That's okay.
But that was gross discrimination. I could not believe that persons in Linden, 70 or 80 plus workers are locked out, including nurses and doctors. But at Georgetown Public Hospital, the central location, which reportedly has about 30 or 40% of the people vaccinated, they're not locked up. So I said, please inform the Minister of Health that there's a problem. He said he had no clue that that's the case in Linden. He thought that every part of Guyana had people locked out. Now, I don't know who does that in this capacity and who would not be informed in this capacity as to what is the status of the healthcare industry across the nation. So the persons did not react because they were just upset at not getting what they want. They saw that they were being treated differently from other parts of Guyana. And even at that point, I tried my best to not have it escalate to a place whereby persons had to experience even a rehearsal, a recollection of what happened in 2012, because I know exactly what persons were wishing in some instances to occur on that day, which is why I took the time to stand there and to ensure that calmness as much as possible and could prevail until this meeting was had with Frank Anthony and others, and there can be some assurance or reassurance that we will not be treated as second-class citizens in our country.
All right, well said, and well done. Apostle Nigel Linden here with us this evening, the man that actually, in my opinion, based on what we've seen, started that worthwhile, justified protest there in Linden. He also traveled all the way to Georgetown. He was at the Square of the Revolution also, joined by folks out in Region 4 as well. And kudos to those folks who were out there in their numbers. During the protest, Mr. Figueira, out there in Linden yesterday, were you able to get in touch with some of your colleagues on the other side, on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, maybe the Minister of Health, to talk about what was transpiring there?
No, unfortunately, that didn't happen. A matter of fact, I was there in the morning with Apostle London, and then I left to go to Georgetown. And on my way, I got several phone calls indicating to me that the protesters went to the bridge. But I had to go to Georgetown because I had a responsibility that had to be taken care of. And when I came up, I did make several attempts. I ended up getting on to the regional health officer, um, Dr. Harris, and I said to him that some semblance of order has to come to this thing before it goes out of control. And I said, one, you cannot allow the nurses and the doctors who provide healthcare services to the community to be prohibited from going to work. I said that I don't subscribe to that position, because this is already the lowest vaccinated region in the entire country. So you already have a potential health crisis, and now you're going to exacerbate it by preventing the frontline workers from going to work. This has none only to do with the nurses and the doctors, so the other staff that makes the hospital work. So he said he will see what he can do. He tried to call the PS. I end up calling the the PS secretary to get his cell phone number, but I didn't get on to him. But I ended up calling another senior functionary of the government, and we were engaged in several conversations. And when I reached up the night, the leader of the opposition called me, and he told me he spoke with the president, and this president told him that he's going to relax the measures to allow the nurses to go and the doctors to go back to work and such like. And I communicated same to Mr. London after I called the president myself. And he said yes, he spoke with the leader of the opposition, and he is going to relax the measures, and he said to give him 20 minutes for him to put the statement together and make the announcement. We waited. I recognized that it was beyond 20 minutes. I tried calling him back because listen, the people were getting real rowdy out there, and the time would have passed. And the commander approached me and he said, "Figueira, um, we have to." We approaching the curfew time. He's gonna go and talk to the protesters to ask them to come off the bridge. Myself and London was there when he was saying that, and I said to the commander, I don't think that would be a wise thing for you to do, because if you go, the people will see is the police against them or them against the police. I said we will speak to the people, because there was an arrangement that was made whereby Mr. London that the people would have agreed that if these conditions were met, they would come off of the bridge. And while we were speaking to them, the message came through. I called back the leader of the opposition and I said, listen, boss, we are here and we haven't gotten the response. He said, yes, it's out there. Let me forward it to you. He sent the the message from the Minister of Health. I read it. I showed Mr. London it, and we communicated same to the people. And the people didn't want to accept that either. They said, let us go and ascertain if it's indeed true. So we walked back to the
At that bridge, Mr. MP, we did see the people. In fact, I watched it
yeah.
on Village Voice, and kudos to the folks at Village Voice for carrying that live footage. The people
Yes,
weren't
indeed.
prepared to come off that bridge at all. And there's a part of me saying maybe kudos, they should have stayed there for another 2, 3 hours. But let's get back to Mr. London, um, Apostle Nigel London. The relaxation of this stuff is still not enough. They're now
It is not
saying
enough.
that they give people 2 weeks. I want to hear from you, Apostle. What happens when the 2 weeks expires?
Well, I have sought to, and it was difficult for me to do so. I have sought to venture into the mind of the Minister of Health or decision makers as to why you give 2 weeks to comply. The
Hmm?
terminology in itself still has draconian natures attached to it and uh, sentiments attached to it. But I realized when I checked my date that it would take us to about the 25th or the 26th of the month. Hence, he can simply just issue another order to say, well, okay, that they've assessed things and now the order is lifted, which
Hmm?
doesn't make him appear to be backstepping politically. But at the same time, while I sought to do that, I recognize that there were still injuries being made and experienced by persons in my community and across the nation. They cannot have access to GRA and other places. I was of the view that the president and others would have realized the far-reaching implications of this situation. Take note, I'm saying again, we have data to work with. The data is that there is no excessive risk of infection in Guyana and high mortality in Guyana. Therefore, we have some time to work with. Simple. You could have closed the airport if you want to do so. relax certain measures and persons are here. Wear the mask, has worked for more than a year, and let's ensure that we have a clear head going forward. They didn't do that. What they did is they maintained a certain position. Yes, the persons were into the hospital. I said to the people at the bridge, let's be fair. If your chant was open the gate and we clear the bridge, then keep your word, because I don't want them to come and do anything to you saying that you've been unfair. But I was not expecting that the following day the ministry would seek to correct and actually tell people that as a family member, if I carry an individual who's ill, I must produce my vaccine card or PCR test. So Frank Anthony, in essence, is saying that I must always have on hand a valid PCR test, which takes 2 to 3 days, by the way, to get the results. He is saying to me as a man that I must always have in my possession, after paying $25,000, a valid PCR test, or I cannot take my son, who's 5 years old, or my daughter, who may be unconscious or sick, to the hospital. I am beginning to feel that someone is seeking to provoke a reaction across Guyana to justify doing certain things to people. Because this is beyond the realm of rational thinking. How am I supposed to know when my family becomes sick? And why must I spend $25,000 every 2 or 3 days just in case they get sick? What are we seeking to accomplish? I am still grieved, but I could not allow Linden to be the only place without healthcare workers in while we had a situation around it, we may need them. For them, Mark, they didn't tell people, and I will tell the public what happened as well. Persons knew, and I encountered nurses from the COVID center. Imagine, we have one COVID center at Wisma, and they were put out too. There was nobody to test anybody there because the people who were testing were not vaccinated. And I said, how can you have a COVID crisis and you can rationalize putting people out of a COVID center who are caring for patients? This is asininity and it is insanity. All of those things I tried to help the government to understand can create a crisis, because you cannot tell me you care about my health regarding COVID-19 and Delta variants and all of that, but the people who are supposed to test somebody who goes with an emergency, you put them out. So who would have been testing people in Linden? I am still grieved because I'm saying that the measures to prevent persons from accessing public buildings must be lifted altogether. It is draconian, it is unfair, and there's no data to support that there's a crisis in our hand.
That would have been my next question in terms of the 2-week suspension that they're talking about. And you have said it quite correctly. It's draconian. It should not be the order of the day. I'm looking at the time, gentlemen. I know we can go on for another hour, but the internet system is rough out there where you guys are. And I don't want that to come in and attack us. But let us go to the Honorable Member of Parliament, Jermaine Figueira. After the 2 weeks, the regime is bent on continuing the forced vaccination of individuals. As part of your citizens, as part of your closing remarks, where do we go from here, sir?
Okay, let me say this. One, I want to reiterate the opposition's position. We are not against vaccination. We are against mandatory vaccination. We are against the approach that the government would have taken with respect to how they are cunningly imposing mandatory vaccination on the nation. I believe the nurses and the doctors should be allowed to work. And I believe if there's a need for PCR tests to be provided, the Ministry of Health should make the facility available for these public servants to go and do these tests for free and provide proof that they are COVID free. Because you cannot be a healthcare provider and patients are coming to you and there's a possibility that you could put them at risk and vice versa. So I believe the Ministry of Health should definitely put a system in place at all of the health facilities, hospital, clinics, what's not, and where these healthcare providers can go and do these tests for free and provide clearance that they're COVID free. That is one of the positions that we believe will help remedy the situation. With the 2 weeks mandatory vaccine, the 2 weeks relax on the curfew, I do believe that it is indeed draconian, it is dictatorial. And what it does for us here in Linden is provide us an opportunity to properly organize, strategize, so that when we are going to go out to protest, we will not have any elements to distract the cause and the objective of our actions that we will be undertaking. Because we cannot be self-defeating in our approach. Because why I say this, Mark, is because last night while we were at the bridge, there were some utterances by some people saying that they're gonna burn down the bridge.
Oh,
Some
really? No, no.
very foolish
It's
comments.
just chit chattering kind of
Yeah,
talk.
but
They probably didn't mean
it
that,
could
but
probably
continue.
reach the ear of somebody who is not rational and might want to undertake such. So I say to all and sundry, or especially listeners who are listening, the cause is for us to put up a sensible response so that we could get our demands met. And we do not need negative elements coming to infiltrate this struggle for that is a just cause for all of the citizens whose lives are at risk. And this is beyond monetary vaccination, Mark. There's a lot of anger out there in the masses of the people. A lot of people, families are are threatened because one, they would have lost their jobs. Even the taxi drivers, the government is providing jobs to them. So this is a struggle and a fight for even the right to earn. Because you're telling me if I'm not vaccinated, and I'm more so I gotta go and pay at a private institution. Why I can't go to government institution to test to know if I got COVID? That's where it used to be happening all of the time.
all the
So
time.
you are imposing a proposed price of $25,000 to the private sector people to charge poor public servants that you have not given them an increase after two budgets and say to them that you have to go and pay a private entity to see if you are COVID free. That is a very wrong position. So all in all, I am saying we're not against vaccination. People should be given a choice, and I take trust that the government would take an opportunity to provide more options of the vaccine so that the citizens who are more informed when they roll out an education campaign can choose whichever they want. I have not taken the vaccine as yet because actually I am waiting for the Cuban vaccine. I hope that the government can purchase some of that so that I can take that. But I'm saying the options of the various vaccine, you can't, don't give Linden Sputnik alone. And more so, Mark, you are saying mandatory vaccine, and they have a number of senior citizens in this community who would have gotten their first dose of the Sputnik since June, and to date they cannot get the second dose. And when the doses come, they are calling selective people to give it because it's just coming in a very small quantity.
Wow.
So you have to fix the issue concerning vaccination if you want to suggest a mandatory approach to um, vaccination. So we are totally against that, and we will fight resolute to ensure that our people's rights and freedoms are respected. Because if today you take this away from us, tomorrow you come for something else. So we must stand up. And I salute the people of Linden, the people of Region 10 for standing firm for what they believe in. And we will continue to do that in a disciplined, in an organized fashion, because we do not want businesses to be affected, no looting and all of these nonsense to happen when these things are not properly planned and organized. All right.
All right. Well said, Member of Parliament, the Honorable Jermaine Figueira, giving us there his closing remarks. I agree with him. And a lot of the things that he said there, he is waiting for the Cuban vaccine to be out. He seems to trust that. The Cuban vaccine, the efficacy rate for that is about 96, or probably I've read somewhere thereabouts.
And
I've
six.
noticed some. I've noticed some. Sorry, go ahead. You said something, MP?
I have read it as 96 too.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so I'm reading some of the comments saying, hey, ask President Biden to send some vaccines, some Moderna or Pfizer, whatever, a couple 100,000 doses to Guyana. I don't know, maybe that's a possibility. But let me say this here, though. I agree with you. It seems to be a money making thing. You didn't say that, but the 25,000 plus dollars just to be tested is ridiculous. It is questionable. How can poor people or people who are hardly making much at the end of the month afford to pay $25,000 or maybe 10,000 minimum to be tested? In the US,
Every 3 days.
I go every 3 days. Thank you, Apostle. I go around at drugstores and I am tested almost anytime I need to be tested. It's free of cost right here in the US. Why can't that be the same in Guyana? I don't know, man. Look, Apostle Nigel London, the man who carried the torch. I have lots of other questions I want to ask you, Apostle, but I can't this evening. I will invite
I
you back right
understand.
here on 107.1 FM to ask you those other questions, those ticklish questions I have for you.
It will be my
But
pleasure to
tonight,
address them.
of course, I know you wouldn't shy away from that. But you take the world of time, sir, because you said it is your body, your choice. It is people's body, their choice to put whatever they want to put in it. I love that. And so the next time you come on, we will talk about your body, your choice. People's body, people's choice. Let's give you
Definitely.
the world a time for your closing remarks, sir, concerning the way forward after this 2 week suspension is over. And what is your message exactly for the people, not only of Linden, but the people throughout Guyana?
Thank you so much. And I'm not waiting for 2 weeks to be over to recommence protesting. My protest continues. This actually speaking to you is a form of my protesting. I shall continue, if it has to be on an individual basis as it begun, to advocate for the people of this nation to be free, to have the right to determine whether they should receive medication or not, or vaccination. I will inevitably have cause to return probably to Georgetown, because I am concerned about the fact that we have leaders, even opposition leaders, who seem to be unable to galvanize their support base to respond to this in a manner that would expect to give a message that we have a mass of people, even members of the PPP Civic. You can get together, because I must take note in my closing that persons stood in on the Security Revolution. I know they were sent with placards that says stop mandatory masking of people. It's a pandemic, and I knew that they were sent there to distract or for us to appear to be people who are anti-vaxxers. I did not tell them to leave, because I want Guyana to know that we'll have a culture, if I can create it, in which we can disagree and stand on the same ground. We don't have to fight, because my individual critical thinking says that if you stand beside me with a different view, it doesn't affect my view. And all across this nation, if we can create an environment in which we are able to speak to our feelings without, as the youth would say, getting into our feelings, we have a better society. I would not wait for 2 weeks to expire before I address the Minister of Health or any other official. For as long as my people remain unjustly treated, my struggle continues every day, throughout the day. And whenever I have the strength, I shall return, and I would be returning to the street, for example, tomorrow, to see what would become of my police brothers and sisters. Would they be mandated to leave the station? I'm going to find out, because I will stand for them as well. We must have a situation in our country that I would not sit for 2 weeks to say thank you to anyone who has relieved me of the stress of not having access to health care, but to deprive me of the right to access, for example, immigration office to get my passport. Why must I pay for PCR test to have a document that indicates that give me the right to travel? Who knows that I have $25,000 to afford this? It is unjust. There are many decisions that are being made that are affecting our people that cannot wait for 2 weeks to be resolved. I go to bed every night. I awake every morning hoping that I will see something sensible and rational regarding this order. And I'm sad to say that I'm disappointed more often than not that it is not going to be met with some degree of understanding. Our people must understand that if Joe Biden could have said in the USA that the vaccines that the FDA disapproved of, they cannot be given to the US citizens, he was kind enough to say that he will send it to lesser developed countries or smaller countries. That again speaks how these people think about me as an individual. And our government would have listed one of those vaccines or two of them on the list that I must take. I have a choice to take vaccines that are rejects. You are disrespectful, I keep saying it. It is unconscionable to mandate and take something that the people you look up to for advice say they won't use themselves. Let's be reasonable. Let's be fair. Let us not have our country disintegrate to a position whereby this happens. And I close by saying this to our regional leaders. I stood there for hours awaiting the arrival of the regional chairman and the mayor, and none showed up. Probably they have a recollection of 2032. But it's unfair to my people for there to be a crisis in Region 10 and in Linden. I'm not a regional leader. Nobody voted for me to do anything. I stood there as an independent man by myself. But I realized that I'm waiting to see a leader who was elected in my community to show up and say something to the people. Instead, I discovered that there was a press release earlier that did not result in the bridge being cleared. I did not expect that leaders in this community will return or even recuse themselves to issuing press releases and conferences when people are on a bridge angry. That doesn't solve problems. We need leadership. We need people to stand, because I'm seeing the absence of even many people who wrote letters. They're not writing letters now. The guardians of democracy are absent. So I'm calling on every individual in Guyana to stand. And I'm calling on our regional leaders, our town leaders, you councillors, make your presence felt. When it comes to human rights, I do not have friends. I have rights. I thank you again, Mr. Benschop. Thank you, Mr. Figueira. I think of all the members of Parliament, you are one of the strongest when it comes to standing with me. Mr. Bethune, I must say the deputy and the mayor came the previous night. But when the fire, in terms of the action, was hottest, I saw no one.
Wow.
I am not elected to speak to people. I chose to speak to people because I don't want my people to be shot by police officers who I defend. Then the police become the focus, and the PPP Civic become those who say, well, they were blocking the bridge, the police had to do their job, and I grieve for Linden people. I am grateful that 2012 did not repeat itself last night, because persons were willing to hear another voice who they knew was prepared to speak honestly, justly, and probably to die with them if I had to.
Let me make this point though, Mark.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I love what I'm hearing tonight. Allow it to digest. The honorable MP wants to make another point. But go right ahead. You finish, Apostle Nigel.
Yeah,
Are you
thank
done?
you. No, I was going to speak to Mr. Figueira, because I'm saying of all the MPs I've encountered, he's one that has allowed me to express how I feel, regardless of how I feel about the party that he's in. And he's never deemed me to my face to be an enemy. And I can respect a man of that nature and that caliber, because it's never personal. It's principle. So thank you, sir. Maybe we can fight tomorrow when you see, but it's all right.
Mr. Member of Parliament, go right ahead, sir. Sorry that I had to cut that off, but
You're welcome. You're welcome, Nigel. You and I have no issues. I respect a man to articulate his views, and I'm the same. I rather get whatever it is off my chest, and I could live with that. But I must take this opportunity to say that at the protest the night before, the mayor was there at the hospital. At the bridge yesterday, the regional chairman was there, as well as several RDC councillors. I won't say I'm saying that because you probably may not know some of the RDC councillors, but a number of the RDC councillors were there. In all fairness, I cannot be on this program knowing that those individuals were present and not speak on their behalf. But you are in your right to say that you didn't see them. But
let me clarify, please, because I don't want it to be misconstrued. I said that they were not heard from by the people. I didn't say that whoever was present did not address the people at 10:30 at night when it was most volatile. That's what I'm speaking to. If you come at 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, you leave, that doesn't have the cause, because the bridge was still blocked. When I knew that there were busloads of officers who came on a mission. I did not see the leaders of the town present. I didn't hear them speak to me I was there as a citizen, as a resident.
All
So
right.
please, if I injured any one of you to say you're not present, I'm saying you were not heard from. People do not respond to your presence, they respond to your voice.
But you would agree, sir, that everybody, all of the leaders cannot speak. But I
Yes,
want
they
to make
can.
this point
We
before
had more than enough time
speak
for
at
them
the
to
same
speak.
time. Okay, okay. Point taken. But I want to make this point before I go, Mark.
Sure.
The action that took place in less than 3 days, 2 days, a matter of fact, by the community, that initiated by Mr. London and the community buy into to it because it was a community. Matter of fact, it is of a national importance. 2 days, people of Linden came out. They stood their ground and they made demands. It is a demonstration of people's power, and because the people
That's
were
correct.
united, because the government changed their position. Some may say that 2 weeks is grossly insufficient, and I agree with that. But it shows if the people are united and the people have a position that they believe and can stand resolute in it, change can come. So I say to all of Guyana who's listening, there is power in unity, and there is
Yes.
power in the people coming together for a common cause. Linden has demonstrated this in a microcosm way, but if the entire population of Guyana demonstrate the unity that Linden demonstrated yesterday, and that is why the government, I believe, went and addressed it in some regard, because they know the spin-off effect. Once Linden started, it would have catch a fire, and we would have a national response. But I believe that national response is coming, and in these 2 weeks we will use it to organize better, so that the people can come out and demonstrate and demand from this government what it is that they rightfully want and deserve. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, MP. People's power indeed started by one man who's not an elected official, who was brave enough to stand out there, walk out in front of the market, pick up a placard, and start to speak. He led that struggle. People expect those sort of things from their elected officials. People don't want to hear a struggle be fought by press releases and half-hearted press conferences occasionally and these different things. And that is why people are looking at Nigel London and saying to people like Nigel London, regardless of how some may feel about Nigel, we don't agree on all issues, but at the end of the day, we've got to give Jack his jacket. And what Mr. London said was at the critical time when you need leaders to be there to talk to their supporters, to talk to citizens. When you look around the shoulders, there's hardly anyone there from a leadership standpoint. I saw the live feed last evening by Village Voice. I saw you there, Honorable
Yes.
Member of Parliament. I
Yes,
saw you
indeed.
trying to calm the people down. I saw
Yes.
also Apostle Nigel London there talking to those people on the bridge. There was nobody else there at that critical time. And I want to say this before we go.
Yes.
Leaders, politicians who have been elected to lead the people should take this as an example. Get out from their air conditioned offices. Stop being cowards. Stand up
Yes.
with the people on the bridge, in the streets, in protest, and so forth, and represent the people. You don't have to jump on a plane to go in other countries to talk about addressing and attending leadership conference and these sort of things. Listen to Apostle Nigel London, what he just said. A mouthful. It's what you call real leadership conference here this evening. Look, some people are going to get offended. Those who are in the opposition or whatever, they're going to get offended. Get up, get out of your air-conditioned offices and represent the people. Don't just
Please
pop
do.
up for a photo op, take a photograph, take a selfie, post it on your Facebook page and believe that that's the end of the struggle. It is not the end of the struggle. Mr. Nigel London, don't be a stranger. You will return here again soon. And before we go, and also thank you, Honorable MP. Before we go, Mr. London, you will be back. Trust me, you will be back, sir.
Thank you.
You stood up there to represent everyone, man, woman, every single color, every single shade.
Yes.
You also represented the gays also, people from the LGBT community also. Would you say that?
I represented every Guyanese because this was not about my conviction as opposed to somebody else's belief as to what they have the right to do. This is about something that affects every human being. Fair enough. I made it clear that regardless of your ethnicity, whatever else it is, every person is being forced to do the same thing. But we can talk another form as to what I do not subscribe to, fine.
Well,
but I represent every person, not an issue.
I have said, Apostle, that you will return. I like the spirit. I like the fighting spirit. That is why I give you kudos for that. And all those other people who were on the bridge last night, who were protesting peacefully, hats off. I salute all of you, every single one of you. And the others who have been carrying the struggles through their Facebook Live, Otto Martin, and others. I salute you guys. I salute all of you. And Mr. Figueira, one thing that you have said also tonight, and I smile about it, that it appears as though the leader of the opposition and Mr. Irfan Ali have this open channel to contact each other and to talk to each other. We need to see that in public. We need to see the politicians get together and address this health issue. It's a crisis. I say, my guests may disagree, because when you have 3, 4, 5 persons dying every day, today about 3 persons have died in such a small populated country, it is a crisis.
It is.
I will be back tomorrow, same place and same time. My fellow Lindener, Nigel London. Thank you so much, sir. God bless you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And to all of our listeners, thank you so much as well. God bless you, and continue to be safe. Wear your mask. And remember, if you want to be vaccinated,
go ahead.
Be vaccinated. If you don't want to be vaccinated, it is also your right not to. God bless. So long.
It's hard to be at peace with the ones who are so discard. It's hard. Them have a knife in your back and them smile it so broad. Help me deal with the ones them who said them love me when them really don't. Help me deal with the fans them kill me flesh when the crowd a shout. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Help me on the battlefield. Cause the booby traps with them set is real. I never want to take your glory, Lord. Send your angels to encamp around about me and stand guard. To envy is so easy and to love it is so hard. Let me work for your glory and not for the award. Don't make me ever get caught up in the scream and the applause. And go talk about the blessing and not talk about the Lord. All these things are vanity. I need your reward. Let me be real. Don't put on no facade. Help me to deal with the ones them who said them love me when them really don't. Help me to deal with the fans them kill me flesh when the crowd a shout. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Help me on the battlefield. Cause the booby traps with them set is real. Sticks and stones can break my bones and words can harm me. They can harm me. When the evil come against me, you'll protect me. You'll protect me. Father, I need the strength of your son. Cause you know my work is not done. Lord, I need that endurance just to finish this race that I run. Help me to deal with the ones them who said them love me when them really don't. And help me to deal with the fans them kill me flesh when the crowd are shout. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Help me on the battlefield. Cause the booby traps with them set is real. You tell me to stand firm Cause every little plan you have a confirm. I know them evil plan turn. In a darkness, me a the lantern. So help me to deal with the ones that who said them love me when them really don't. Jesus, help me to deal with the fans them kill me flesh when the crowd a shout. Help me on the battlefield. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Help me on the battlefield. Got the booby traps with them set is real. Help me to deal with the ones them who said them love me when them really don't. Help me to deal with the fans them kill me flesh when the crowd a shout. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Jesus, help me on the battlefield. Help me on the battlefield. Got the booby traps with them set is real. Help me to deal with the ones them who said them love me when them really don't. Help me to deal with the fans them